three of us talking NFL, a little college football, a little draft talk. REC, that's Rec. Russ Lande would be the R in that equation. Russ, former NFL scout and current Montreal Alouettes personnel man, runs the great GM Junior Scouting website. Go ahead and check that out. You can also follow Russ on Twitter at Russ Lande there. I am the E in the equation. I am Eric Edholm. I write for Yahoo Sports. Russ and I did a lot of work together at 120 Sports as well, where we met Chris Martin, who is not pictured today. He will be joining us next week. Chris is traveling right now, so we're going to have him on the show. He is the C, REC, Rec League. You get it? All right, that's where it is. And I think what's cool is that the three of us kind of fill different gaps. Russ, you're sort of the scouting, the personnel side. Chris is the former player who also knows the agent side of the business. And I'm the media hack. I'm the guy who can kind of pretend like he knows what he's talking about. So we complement each other pretty well here, I'd say.
And you know a lot more than you give yourself credit for. You have a lot of contacts around the league, and you talk to a lot of people, and you watch a lot of films. So give yourself a little props.
And when in doubt, I fake it very well. Okay, moving on with the Rec League. Every week, I think what we're going to try to do is kind of hit on 5 major topics, sort of big themes, and maybe we'll profile a game, maybe we'll talk about one player, but just sort of 5 big stories that are going on around the NFL. First one I wanted to ask your opinion of that affects multiple teams, the Sam Bradford trade. Now, this went down a couple weeks ago, 8 days from the start of the season. It kind of shook up the NFL. I mean, first of all, we don't see these kind of things happen very often, if at all. But Russ, I mean, given the very early returns for both the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a great young-looking rookie in Carson Wentz, and also the Minnesota Vikings, who just beat the Green Bay Packers up in their U.S. Bank Stadium opening. I mean, is it too early to say win-win on the trade? What are your early thoughts on what you're seeing?
I mean, I don't think it's too early to say. I mean, I think the Vikings, think they made a bold move giving up what they did to go get him. But I think they realized they have a lot of talent on that team. And while everybody was anointing Teddy the guy, Teddy was still sort of a developing quarterback. And I think bringing in Bradford not only helps him this year, but it could also be the guy a year from now. We don't know when Teddy's going to be healthy. This gives him a guy that could be a frontline starting quarterback. And to go with the rest of that team gives him a chance to have a great season. And I think the Eagles, from the people I spoke to there, they were looking for an excuse to put Carson Wentz in the lineup. They didn't think they were a Super Bowl team this year. They felt next year we have a chance to be a solid team, maybe a playoff team. Well, why not get Wentz the experience now? And I think as soon as they heard someone was interested in Bradford, they were like, let's try to find a way to do this because we want to get Wentz in the lineup. They've been blown away from him in the building from what I was told.
And credit to Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, too, because here's a guy who I think has taken a lot of heat.
Tons.
He was the guy, and then Chip Kelly comes in, and he was no longer the guy. And now he sort of regains that power in this offseason. I mean, they made a lot of bold and interesting moves, including trading up for Wentz, and not everybody was on board. There was some big money contracts in free agency. There was the Wentz trade giving up all those picks. There was the insistence that Bradford is their guy. And now that he's made this trade, and maybe they stole Dorial Green-Beckham too, I mean, boy, all of a sudden you have to say maybe Howie has something going on here.
Well, I think you have to give Howie some credit. I mean, this is a smart guy. Now, I know he rubs some people the wrong way around the league, but let's remember, this is a guy who's a very educated guy. He's worked his way up from the bottom to really become a guy that knows football and business, and I think he understood the most important thing before this offseason really took off was the only position you can never have too much of is quarterback. And I think he said, you know what, we want to go get Wentz. We're going to keep Bradford. And at some point, whether it was now or even next offseason, someone's going to probably trade for Bradford. Maybe it only would have been a 6th rounder if there wasn't an injury situation, but they would have got something. And I think he's got to get a lot of credit for that. The Eagles are in a great spot now. They got back one of their first-round picks. Don't be shocked if 2 years from now they're the class of the NFC East, because 2 years from now, they could be the only team with a frontline elite quarterback because Romo and Manning are getting older and Cousins is sort of an unproven guy.
Yeah, good call there. Dak Prescott obviously is an interesting man in Dallas. Now let's go to the Vikings angle of this. And I don't know, obviously week 1, Sean Hill plays at Tennessee. The offense was limited to field goal attempts a lot of the times, had to rely on the defense. But I don't know if they could have expected anything better than what they received out of Sam Bradford. 2 weeks knowing Norv Turner's offense. He's had 7 different offensive coordinators, whatever the number is. Pretty incredible to see the precision and the confidence and the accuracy, everything he rolled out there on Sunday night. Half the game without Adrian Peterson. I was very impressed.
I was blown away by a few things. Firstly, he seemed to have a pretty good command of their offense, and Norv's offenses are not basic. They're a pretty complex offense. You could see he was still trying to figure out with his linemen how to make the calls in terms of who was going to do what, and there was a little communication problem there. But I thought he played so well. He showed so much toughness standing in that pocket, and I think you see with Rudolph, with Stephon Diggs, they've got some weapons there. If they have a guy who can push it down the field, and I think that the interesting thing now is obviously Adrian's got the injury, and you have Jerick McKinnon, but I really think Matt Asiata, the running back, I think he could be the key here because he's a powerful inside runner, and if they're throwing the ball, they don't have to dominate running. They just have to be physical and control the clock, and I think he's more of that fit than McKinnon may be.
And Matt Asiata had a 9-touchdown season a couple years ago. We've seen him be that power back before, so a guy to keep an eye on. We're not a fantasy chat here.
No, that's for sure.
Fantasy owners can certainly grab a nugget or two, and I think you're right about Asiata. I think he could be very, very valuable. So Eagles, Vikings, both 2-0, both look to be in good shape at quarterback. Let's turn the page to our second topic, and to me, one of the big themes that came up this season through 2 weeks, big story, and it always is the case, early season injuries. Several teams have been hit really hard. I'm going to throw about 6 teams your way, and it's a lot, I know, but I'm going to ask you which one has been kind of hit the hardest in your mind. I'll kind of set them up. We got to start with the Vikings. We got to mention them. Losing Teddy Bridgewater, huge blow, even if Bradford's played well. Peterson now could be out, perhaps for the remainder of the season, perhaps for a couple of months. The reports are a little bit sketchy as we went to tape this. Xavier Rhodes missed the first 2 games. Sharif Floyd, a couple other guys. That's one team. Cleveland Browns have now lost their first and second string quarterback. They're down to Cody Kessler. Cam Irving got hurt. A couple of defensive guys also injured. What about the New England Patriots? They're already without a couple suspended players. They lose Jimmy Garoppolo. We don't know his status for Thursday or beyond. Gronk has been out. A couple of linemen, etc. How about your San Diego Chargers, too? Woodhead, Allen, both ACLs out for the season each week, 1 and 2. Joey Bosa's been banged up after his holdout. Got to put them in that category. Lions, I kind of have them a little bit lower. Abdullah, Ebron, Ansah. Abdullah out for the year is a big one. The other guys seem like they'll be back. The Colts losing 3 defensive backs. Vontae Davis, Darius Butler, Patrick Robinson. Moncrief might be out extended now. And the last one I had on this list, and maybe I've forgotten somebody, but the Bears, Jay Cutler, Lamar Houston, that's secondary. So I just laid out 6, 7 teams right now, all who have been kind of gutted through the first couple of weeks to injury. Is there one of those teams in your mind that's been hit the hardest?
Well, I mean, to me, I think a few of them have been hit really hard, but I look at Cleveland. I look at a team that you lose your starting quarterback. Now, neither one of us is going to say that Robert Griffin is the superstar great quarterback, but he was a starter. He was at least an adequate get you through a game, get you out of a season starter. Then you lose McCown. And it's like, okay, what do we do now? We're going to Cody Kessler, who I like. I think he's an interesting kid. But you're talking a 3rd-round pick that a lot of teams really didn't like. Now you're handing the ball to him behind an offensive line that's lost Irving. We don't know when he's going to be back. That's scary to me. And the other one you mentioned, I got to say, the other one that scares me is sort of the Chicago Bears. And the reason I say that is Cutler goes out now for 3 or 4 games, and we also forgot Gross, who got hurt in the preseason. So right. Cutler was already working with a new center. Now you're bringing in Hoyer, who's working with a new center, so that communication is going to be an issue. But I really think that Cleveland just got killed. When you lose your top 2 quarterbacks and you have to turn to a rookie now, at least Dallas knew this 5 weeks ago. And they were able to get Dak in there getting reps. So he's had first-team reps for 4 or 5 weeks. Kessler's had first-team reps for a day. And that's why I just look at Cleveland and think, ooh, this could get ugly fast. I mean, you could be talking about a team that maybe gets blown out by 30, 40 points for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I hope I'm wrong because I like Kessler, but it's just a bad situation.
They get an angry Miami Dolphins team, I believe, 0-2 team that lost 2 games by a total of 9 points. 2 very good teams on the road, too. I mean, They face Tom Brady in Week 5. We think they do get Josh Gordon back, but I mean, it only gets tougher in Cleveland. I guess the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We got to quote Bob Dylan here. When you got nothing, you got nothing to lose. So you got that going for you, Hugh Jackson. Let's go back to the Bears a second. You know, with Cutler, there was some talk there locally. We're both located here in Chicago, as is Chris Martin, our missing man here. But I wrote about this in the preseason. I wrote how maybe there are times when I think he gets sort of a bad rap. Some of it I think is self-inflicted. Here's a guy who probably went into this game with an injury, probably played through it, aggravated it, continued playing another series, throws the pick, then comes out and says after the game, look, I realized I was hurting my team. You know, people are playing that soundbite next to the Josh McCown soundbite of McCown saying, hey, look, I got to play, I got to be out there. And everybody's saying, oh, Cutler's a dog, and he's a... What did you make of that whole setup? I thought it was a little bit of an ambush on his character or on his toughness a little bit. I could be wrong, but maybe I'm...
No, I think you're 100% right. I mean, I'm not a big fan of his play on the field. That's always been an issue to me. But as a guy, I mean, let's remember, he has battled through a bad offensive line for a number of years, and he gets out there almost every game. I mean, this is a tough guy. I think if you were to look around the league and say, okay, who's the most physically gifted quarterback? He's in the top 3 or 4. Who's the smartest guy in terms of sitting there on a chalkboard? He's definitely in the top 5, and he's very tough. Now, does he play under control and make great decisions all the time? No, and I think that's his biggest problem is he tends to force balls. But anybody who thinks that you can just say, we'll get rid of him and we'll take anybody, that's the mistake. I'm really concerned about their ability as an organization right now. Are they going to be able to survive this? Because if they win 2 games this year, how much patience is that building going to have? Because they are a bad team. And Cutler, after this year, they can get rid of him with almost no salary cap hit. So if they start going down the path of losing, I'd be shocked if Cutler isn't somewhere else next year.
Yeah, and yet here's the thing. Right now, no developmental quarterback on the team. They've got Brian Hoyer, who is, as we know, a guy who is your classic backup. He can fill in for a stretch here or there. But he's on a 1-year deal. He's certainly not young. He's not anybody counting on as a starter. And who are you going to get? I mean, it's either coming through the draft, and I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is magically going to be available by trade. He's under contract another year. So it's like, you know, everybody wants the kid from Eastern Illinois who got passed over in all the local colleges. Oh, Jimmy's going to come in and be our savior. We'll trade a first-round pick for him. First of all, the price will be higher.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to trade him. I think they'll franchise him after 2018 if they have to. So.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot. I think the interesting thing is going to be for the Bears is Hoyer has a history of playing great his first game or 2. And then he evens out and sort of slides back to being the mediocre guy he is. I wonder if he can do that for a week or 2, and then all of a sudden Cutler's healthy again and can step right in. So I think that's their best hope is that Hoyer plays great like he usually does for a week or 2, and then starts to fall off the cliff.
There's a lot of injury ripple effects going on around the NFL. Let's segue into kind of our biggest disappointment and biggest surprise to this point of the season. And, you know, the surprise, I guess let's start on a positive note here. I mean, has there been anything in your eyes, either a player doing well, a team doing well, a coach, you know, really showing his skills? There's something that has kind of stood out. You mentioned Stephon Diggs. He's the leading receiver in the NFL. You know, D'Angelo Williams, maybe the oldest tailback in the NFL. He and Frank Gore are pretty close in age. Is there something to you that has kind of stood out in a very positive way that has surprised you this season?
You know, to me, the biggest shock is Steve Spagnuolo went to the Rams and was horrible. Terrible head coach, comes back to the Giants, and things sort of go south. They spend all this money in free agency, and usually that means that defense struggles. When you bring in a lot of guys, they struggle until it's midseason when they start to gel. But Steve's done a great job here. He's got them all playing together. They're really not making many mental errors due to not being a team and playing together for a long time. I think they've done a great job, especially considering the offense has been very up and down at this point. It really hasn't lit things on fire. So to me, the Giants are a great surprise in terms of they've won the way I would have guessed they wouldn't. I would have thought if they were going to win 2-0, I would have thought it would have been 46, 42 shootouts with Eli throwing 6 touchdowns and 2 picks. but their defenses played great. They shut down Drew Brees last week. They did a great job. So they've really surprised me. I'm really excited for the people of the Giants.
Yeah, you make a good point, too. Teams that typically add a bunch of free agency talent, especially in one unit. Look at the Oakland Raiders. They struggled. They haven't come together cohesively as a defense. Usually when that happens, it takes a year to kind of marinate.
Yep, exactly.
It doesn't happen at all. So you're right. I think through 2 weeks, seeing them play as well as they have is a huge surprise. I'm going to go with Matt Ryan. Here's a guy that I've been very critical of. I haven't seen an upward trajectory from him the last couple of years. Now, I did happen to talk to him on the phone yesterday and wrote about him at the Shutdown Corner. And I think right now there's just a better understanding with what Kyle Shanahan wants to do, what Matt Ryan does best. And now they have multiple targets, Russ.
Yes, no doubt.
9 different guys caught passes. It's not just the Julio show. He targeted his tight ends 13 times in that game against the Raiders. I mean, you and I know, since Tony Gonzalez has been gone, they really haven't had that guy. But
Jacob Tammy. Yep.
Tammy. Those guys have all been productive. Kevin Coleman is now a weapon. Freeman doesn't have to carry the load. Julio doesn't have to carry the load. And that hurry-up offense, the play action off the run game, that all of a sudden, I know they lost in week 1. I think they probably should have gone to the hurry-up a little earlier in week 1 when they were down 18 points or whatever it was. I think there's maybe something brewing in Atlanta. I don't know. They're getting a little healthier defensively now with Keanu Neal coming back and O'Brien Schofield coming back. So I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons. I kind of had the Buccaneers as a team to watch in that division, but I may be sort of changing my feathers a little bit and say that the Birds have a good chance. And they go into New Orleans on Monday night for a big game on the 10th anniversary of Katrina. So that's a big emotional game too. Yeah,
and what I really like there, Matt Ryan, is a lot of people are saying, well, he doesn't fit Shanahan's offense. He can't do the things getting out of the pocket. He's not a great athlete. But remember, you don't have to run a 4-3 to be able to roll out. And I think what Matt Ryan has done is he's worked the offseason. He's focused on what do I need to do better footwork-wise to be more effective when they ask me to roll, when they ask me to do play-action fakes. And he's really been, to me, efficient. He may never win awards for being a guy that gets out in space, but he can get out there and be efficient. And I think Shanahan has also tailored the offense. He says, here's a few things Matt doesn't do well, so let's not ask him to do those things. Let's ask him to do what he does well. They've really worked well together, given it's only 2 weeks. But I think there's a lot of positives to look for offensively for them. Defensively, I'm still a little bit nervous that we could be looking at a team that really struggles to keep games close. It may be shootout after shootout.
Yep. No, that's a fair point. And Matt said, look, I may not be the world's greatest athlete, but I throw well on the move.
He does, no question.
Let's go to the negative side of things, because you and I are pretty kind of dour, sour guys. So disappointments to this point of the season. Obviously a lot to choose from. There are a lot of 0-2 teams. I think people are going, whoa, boy. Jacksonville, Buffalo. There's some good options there. New Orleans has lost a couple close games. You could look at some individual performances and say, what's going on with this guy, Todd Gurley, whatever. What is your biggest disappointment to this point of the season?
To me, and it's a 1-1 team, but it's the Seattle Seahawks. Because I have real concerns. They have so much talent on that team. But I look at that offensive line, and I think, is this line going to keep them from winning 8 or 9 games and keep them out of the playoffs? Because I look at Justin Britt. He looks like he maybe not even is an NFL guy. He looks brutal. They're really struggling to replace some guys that weren't great, but that were solid workman-like guys. And it seems like they've tried so hard to find late-round guys and plug them in that it may have, at least for this year, caught up with them, and they may have to spend a little money, go get 1 or 2 free agents, because they just don't look like offensively they're going to be able to control the line and protect Russell Wilson to give that offense a chance to put up 28, 30 points a game.
You hurt me, brother. You hurt me on 2 fronts here, because I picked the Seattle Seahawks to be my Super Bowl winner preseason. And I admit it freely that offensive line, unless Tom Cable works more magic, is going to be...
Which is possible.
It's possible, and every year we say, hey, what is up with this group? Usually serviceable by the end of the season. They figure out solutions, and then you call out my Mizzou guy, Justin Britt. That hurts. You're right, but it hurts.
I hear you. I totally get it. Who's your disappointment?
My disappointment, I could almost say Aaron Rodgers to this point, but he had some pretty good moments in week 1, so I'm not going to quite go there. I guess I'm saying that the Buffalo Bills, I don't know what my expectations were, but they certainly haven't met them.
No, that's for sure.
And when you're firing Greg Roman week 2, whether it was the right move or not, the Pagulas have already kind of stepped in and pulled players. I mean, it already undercuts what Rex is trying to do. Now we're saying, hey, was bringing in Rob a bad idea to run this defense? Sammy Watkins banged up. The offensive line's not the same group. I just see problems all over the place, and I see a tough game this week and a tough game next week. Arizona at home, at New England, and I just think to myself, is Rex in a lot of trouble here? Is he on Skid Row all of a sudden?
I think the whole organization is. From what I've heard, Rex and Doug are tied at the hip, and if this goes south, they're going to wipe everything out. And the interesting thing to me is, remember, 2 years ago, they made a big run at Bill Polian, and it didn't work out. Now I wonder if they blow that building out, will the Pagulas say, you know what, here's a veteran guy, he can come in, give some stability to the franchise, and Polian returns to Buffalo. So it'd be interesting to see. I can't say it's likely, but I think that's something that'll definitely come up if they go down that road of firing Rex and Doug.
All right, let's call this fourth down here, and every week I think we're going to do is take a little bit of a draft look, and we're still early in the college football season, so this is going to be some broad strokes, and we're going to hit on some bigger names until we get a little more information. But I really want to tap into your knowledge and take a kind of a broad look at the quarterback position. I think coming into the year, everybody knew about Deshaun Watson national championship game, all that stuff. One of those guys who could have been, could be the number one pick in the draft, but Deshaun Kaiser has kind of thrown his name into the ring. Chad Kelly has kind of been up and down, and one of those players that, boy, I don't really know about yet. I'm not in love with. There are some other intriguing names that I think people have kind of thrown out there, Luke Falk and Patrick Mahomes and other people like that. Broad strokes, quarterback position, what have you seen so far in college football?
So far, I have not seen one guy that I would say is worthy of a top 10 pick. To me, Watson is a long ways away. He's a freak talent, but he's so inaccurate, he scares me. To me, the most intriguing guy of all of them is Luke Falk. You talk about a big, pretty-looking kid. He almost looks a little like Hackenberg. Big, powerful arm, can make the throws. But
and that's a good thing.
What's that?
He looks like him.
Yeah, oh, it's that, right? The only difference is Luke is hitting on 74% of his passes this year, 11 touchdowns and 2 picks. That's a lot better than Hackenberg did. I think Falk could be the sleeper. Now, I've heard he wants to stay another year. But if he starts hearing from agents that you will be the first quarterback, which means probably a top 10 pick, I think it'll be tough for him to stay. He's a very intriguing quarterback to me.
Yeah, there are obviously some very interesting players in this group, but and maybe it ends up being kind of a better, overall quarterback class than what we saw this year. Although it's hard to say. I mean, if Dak Prescott, works.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Brad Kaya is somebody who, is better in NFL hands than he is than in college hands or something like that. I mean, there's still so many different things to look at there. We'll keep diving into that. The running back position, I wrote last week. I said this is such. That's so creamy. Sorry, got an ad pop up there. Let me hit that. All right, good. Chicken enchiladas are creamy. That's all we needed to hear today. The running back position, Russ, is one that looks exceptionally deep.
Oh, no doubt.
All of a sudden, we have at least some questions about each guy, right? I mean,
yep.
Fournette been banged up a little bit. Dalvin Cook, is he a complete back? Is he going to be that guy worthy of a top 10 pick? Nick Chubb has been shut down, relatively speaking, in 2 of his 3 games. And then there's that Christian McCaffrey question of, is he a slot receiver?
Exactly. Where does he fit?
Down back? Is he a 3-down guy? So it seems like a great class, and there are a lot of great talents. Samaje Perine and all these guys, and Wayne Gallman. How great is it, though? I mean, that's my big question, I think.
I look at it, I think it's an outstanding class in that you're going to have 3 first-rounders at least, because Fournette's going to go high. I mean, people look at him now. Do I love him? No, I think he's a little bit stiff. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I think he's an elite running back. But I think some teams are going to be a little bit nervous about taking him high. But this class overall is really good. I think you're going to see more people talking about potential 4 or 5 backs in the first round than we've seen in a number of years. Not that many will go there, but they'll be shattered that many could.
We'll dive deep into the draft and get more on this stuff as we go along each week in the season. I want to get to the last part, and that will be our bowl prediction for week 3. Now, if you want to make it a college football prediction, you can, of course, but let's go ahead and I'm going to do mine on the NFL, and I'm curious to hear what you think might be something bold that happens in the NFL, whether it's a game, an individual performance, some kind of trend that happens around the league. Give me your bold prediction for week 3.
You know, it sounds crazy because I really don't think the Bears are a very good team. But I really think, as often happens with Brian Hoyer, he comes out and has one excellent game. I think they're going to go to Dallas. He's going to play great, and they're going to come out of there with a win because I think Dallas's offense is not playing well. I think he's going to do enough to win about 19-17. They're going to pull off their one win of the year.
Look at you. And everybody's sitting here saying that the Bears shouldn't be on prime time. This is another national embarrassment. You're calling it. You're saying it's going to happen that way. Wow, I'm impressed. Yeah, I was going to pick Cleveland over Miami. Can't quite do that, though.
That's a hard one with Cody Kessler.
That is a hard one. I'm going to say that the Vikings, I don't know how bold this is. Maybe you can call me out on this, but I'm going to say the Vikings go down to Carolina and win. And I know Carolina had trouble kind of putting San Francisco away. I know they lost week 1. This is still the Carolina Panthers. They were unbeaten at home last year. 10-0 if you count the postseason. I mean, they were really tough to beat. And it just, the core of this team is still in place. But I think Minnesota showed enough last week. Now, it was an emotional win. It was at home. They got to go on a road short week. But I'm going to say Minnesota, even with Peterson going to be out for this game, finds a way to scratch out a win at Carolina, and the Panthers go 1-2. Am I crazy?
No, I think there's a good chance of it. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, a hard-hitting, violent game, and I love to see Cam Newton having to go up against Bradford. I think it's going to be a great matchup, unique, different quarterbacks, but I think it's going to be a very good game.
And that defense.
Both of them, right? Holy smokes.
I don't know how much you watched of the line, but I mean, I'm telling you, like, Linval Joseph looks like a freight train in the middle of that thing.
He was great. Griffin was. I couldn't believe how often he was getting held by Bakhtiari, and they never even called a penalty. It was brutal. But that defense of the Vikings is a bear. And imagine when they get Xavier Rhodes back in there. Woo!
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be a fun team to watch, indeed. All right, this is the Rec League, or for this week, the Rec League. We're missing the C. That's Chris Martin. But for Russ, Lande, and GFJuniorScouting.com, I am Eric Edholm with Yahoo Sports. We'll be here every week breaking down the NFL and college football via the draft. Coming to you right here. Follow us and give us a like if you can too as well. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.